Hey guys, Spanners here. I've got the opportunity to speak to a real insider expert. So today we're going to drop in with Mike Caulfield to answer some of your questions about Formula One. Of course, I have to invite Matt to Trumpets along because you can read good and read the questions out.
Because I can say things and sound like they are correct, even when they're not.
Now, remember, it's the listener questions, not Matt 18-part questions.
But I have a plan for this, actually. I've discussed it with our guest ahead of time, and strategically speaking, I can ask at least 3 at the same time and therefore achieve the overcut and win the race.
Okay, but this isn't going to be another Rob Smedley situation where you said, oh, I'm going to ask my multi-part questions, and Rob Smedley was like, oh, you can bring it all on, lad. I've had multi-part questions before you were eating your hot dinners back in there. And then, predictably, he did completely lose track of your multi-part questions.
He multi-part questioned Shane me. He's like, that's nothing. The press journalists in press conferences asked me 17-part questions. That was only 3.
Okay.
I felt embarrassed, honestly. I'm bringing my best next time, though, Rob.
Well,
watch out.
There you go. Well, the next victim of that is going to be ex-Mercedes and HAAS strategist Mike Caulfield. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Hi, thanks. Good to be back. I just want to, first thing is your northern accent for Rob, and he's from the northeast.
The north is the north. Anything north of Birmingham, you all sound exactly the same. Where are you from, Mike?
Yorkshire, yeah.
Yorkshire. Oh, right. So if
you'd done your Rob impression for me, I'd have taken it as a compliment. But I think Rob probably be quite offended.
Well, shaming regional accents aside, Mike, for those who don't know you, of course, you spent a long time as a strategist in the team for Mercedes, and you were, what do you call it, chief strategist at HAAS? Did they go around calling you chief?
I mean, at one point, it depended what I felt like on the day. So I was either a graduate strategist, just a strategist, a chief strategist. I was pretty much the whole group at one point. So yeah, whatever you want.
A department of one, but I'm in charge. I've got the mug.
Exactly, yeah.
Matt, I think you picked out a good listener question to start with, and these questions were distributed within our Patreon chat, who actually... they're really good at generating questions at the moment, so we are focusing our attention there. But if you want to come and hang out in our Patreon Discord, go to patreon.com/missedapex and consider becoming a patron.
Yeah, and this is something that I've been very curious about and I feel very happy about. But you were at HAAS, and Pat has asked us, how much value would you place on the testing of previous cars and the sim work that Toyota has enabled HAAS to do? So you know what it was like in the before times, so you can give us a really great idea of what it's going to be like in the after times.
Yeah, so obviously this is the first time they've been able to do TPC testing. So this is the first car they've had available for that. So as a first step, being able to do that additional running is a big advantage for just getting other drivers in, getting a bit of kind of testing under your belts. It helps for a team operationally. It can just help that kind of overall building of the younger staff, for example. I mean, they're obviously testing the car, which is the 2023 car, which obviously wasn't very competitive, as that's the only one which they're allowed to test at this point. They're not allowed to do the 2024 one. So how much that'll bring in terms of a performance advantage, in terms of trying to get Esteban and Ollie Berman up to speed, I don't really know. But I don't think it'll be hugely. With regard to the sim work Toyota can do, yeah, that should bring quite a big advantage, because we all know that HAAS is a small team, and building those sim tools is huge amount of work. I mean, even your Ferraris and Mercedes, Red Bull, their kind of sim stuff they've been doing has just been a total development over the last 10-15 years, and it's always developing. So having that ability for Toyota bringing their expertise should be a good step for them, and it's definitely something that HAAS has lacked probably in their existence in F1.
You don't hear it as much anymore, but you hear kind of almost pride from the old school drivers of like, I don't bother with none of that simulation stuff. I need to feel it all with the seat of my ass going around the track. And you had like Raikkonen didn't touch it. Hamilton never touched it. Daniel Ricciardo wouldn't do the track walk. Do you reckon that's like a fading thing now, where really like you need to be doing your simulation work, or you're just losing too much?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two parts to this. Is obviously with the old school drivers, it was the days of unlimited testing, or they were able to drive like thousands of kilometers in a season, or in their kind of build up to F1. And then the second part of it is obviously the younger generation has grown up with video games and driving sim racing and all that bit. So they're already more adapt to doing that and adapt to how the differences between the real car and sim cars kind of behave. Because there are differences, and there's quite big differences. But I think the modern drivers, I like to say modern drivers, the younger drivers know how to kind of adjust it and how to kind of maybe adapt what they're feeling in the sim to what they feel on the track and vice versa. Whereas some of the older guys who didn't really have that experience growing up didn't have that ability to kind of translate it and struggle to adapt to it.
But that's not the only use of the simulator in the team. As sort of my understanding from reading about it was that they will now have access to a driver in loop simulator to help with setups for the Fridays and Saturdays, whereas before they only had occasional access at Maranello. Or am I misunderstanding that?
Yeah, I mean, I know in the early years they had quite extensive access to Ferrari's one. I think it's dropped off over the last few years. I think since COVID, it kind of dropped off in terms of the amount of running they got at Ferrari, and slash the amount of benefit that I think they found from doing it. Because it's not just the ability to having someone in the simulator and running it. You have to have a team who's developing the run plans and analyzing the run plans and able to translate that across. And I think that's potentially one of the aspects they were lacking, is that they didn't have the people to kind of group to run it, to then kind of say, this is our run plan, what's the track run plan, how are we going to get this benefit kind of across from Fridays in Maranello to the track and all that aspect. So like the team was still learning at the track and didn't have the people to concentrate, or the resource to concentrate on how to build that kind of sim program side by side. So again, bringing Toyota in, who have the experience of how to do this and how to kind of build this program and how to link it will be the benefit for it. I'm still, and I could be totally wrong, but it's my opinion, I'm still not a huge advocate of the Friday night running anyway, because basically by the time you got to curfew, you've already decided your setup. So whatever comes from the simulator is unlikely to be kind of fed into the car setup anyway, because the cars have to be built basically 2 hours after FP2 is finished. So if they're running over Friday night, you're not going to arrive back at the track Saturday morning and suddenly rip your car apart and rebuild it. So
that's ruined everything. I had a thing of like Mick Schumacher running in with a piece of paper, like, wait, I've got it. And then you're like opening it up, going, not now, Mick, fine. And they go, gasp. Okay, everybody, raise the ride heights and the fork sprung dirch. No.
I mean, I've been there. I've spent the days in the Mercedes sim on a Friday night, and you are there till 2 a.m. But it always seemed to be like you did all this work, you sent it to the track, and then you're like, no, they haven't done any of it. Or they've taken one thing out of the 17 things you've tried, because like, oh yeah, we can adjust that ride height by 3 mil. That's okay, we'll do that. And try that and run it for the first one, and then no, it didn't work.
Do you reckon the TV makes a big deal of those Friday night tests? Because I know they basically kept attributing Schumacher in the sim to some great Mercedes overnight change.
I mean, there must be some benefit to it, because why would every team do it? I mean, but I just, from my experience of it, I've never seen a full buy-in from the trackside guys for it. Is it, like I said, you've kind of got to do all your setup sheets, all the building of the car has to be done within 2 hours of FP2 finishing on a Friday. So and then you've only got 3 hours on a Saturday morning, and sometimes, yeah, if it's a big change, they're not going to do it. They might do some slight changes. They might do some kind of take some of that information, but you're not going to get kind of a sudden total setup change coming overnight and having to kind of totally change it from Friday to Saturday. So I think potentially more it's kind of, you're looking at what the car drivers are feeding back during the sessions, what the kind of race engineers, performance engineers are saying at the track, and then you're kind of almost maybe validating what they're kind of suggesting straight off on a Friday night and kind of saying, yes, the sim does show this. you're good to go, or maybe this isn't going to see as much. I don't think it's the case of they're inventing all these brand new setups, sending it to the track, and then the track trying it.
Okay, don't lie to this next question, right? So when I was fixing, repairing, setting up anti-aircraft systems, I would hop into the equipment, into the gunner's chair. I'd run simulations in the embedded software, plus in the simulations back home. And I know that I was better than any Royal Artillery gunner at optical tracking of aircraft. So my question to you is, how far off on the lap times from Magnussen and Hulkenberg, Hamilton, Rosberg were you on the simulator? Please don't pretend that you never jumped in.
I didn't,
Mike.
I didn't. I jumped in once as a seat fit to see if a certain driver would fit into it, because I was 1 inch bigger than him, and I didn't fit.
You were used as ballast.
Basically. Yeah, I literally, I couldn't turn the steering wheel far enough. It was like, because my knees got in the way. So
tell me that there wasn't a driver that missed out on a drive because Mike Caulfield couldn't fit in the simulator.
No, I think they knew what mods to make based on me, but then I didn't get another go.
Oh, you never jumped in and just went... Oh, because I'm really curious, because I know... do you remember at Lotus, they had a test driver, Jorda Carmen or something like that, Jorda Carmen? And the big thing was, one of the Danish test drivers kicked off saying, oh, she's 12 seconds off the pace. And I was thinking, I'd probably be quite lucky to be only 12 seconds off in an F1 car, in the sim.
Yeah, I don't imagine I'd be very close. I'd be chatting to the guy running the simulator and telling him to put that grip level up.
Matt, let's get another question from the patrons.
All right. Well, since we're talking about your former team, I see that there's a question about Kevin Magnussen, and specifically how important the drivers are, or how the ways the driver can make strategies available. Like specific drivers can make specific strategies available that, like, so for a driver A, I could do this strategy, but absolutely not with driver B.
Who's that from?
That's from F. Garda.
Harb,
I don't know. And he would also like your personal opinion of working with Kevin Magnussen, because he's a Dane and patriotic. So that might be a clue as to how you should answer.
That's fine. No, I mean, so yeah, there's 100%. There's certain drivers which you could get to do things, and certain drivers which you'd struggle with.
Guys, we need to get to the end of the race with our front wing end plates, and Magnussen's like, oh, guess that's Hulk going to be doing that one.
Yeah, pretty much. No, I mean the main ones come is I mean, I know people don't like to talk about it, but the ability to tire manage, that's like certain drivers you can, if you're close between, say, like a 2 and 1 stop, and the 1 stop is an optimum strategy, if you can make it work, there'll be certain drivers you go, we're not gonna be able to do this. We're gonna have to drop off too much, because they just don't have that ability to manage the tires, and if they do manage it, they drive too slow. And there are certain drivers who just don't manage in the right place, so they'll lose too much time by doing the management required. Whereas certain drivers can just pick it up and do that much more easily. And it's quite interesting. It's generally the drivers, again, the younger drivers now seem to have that better feel of it, who have been in the F2, F3 series, who obviously don't have that. They have to do more tire management in their races because of the tires they get given for them. And it's quite interesting to see, actually. I think Lando used to be, when he first came in, I obviously never worked with him personally, but when he first came into the sport, he used to look to be really strong with his tire management. And almost as the Ferraris moved away from his F2 racing, he seems to have forgotten certain aspects of what he used to do. And sometimes now I think he tends to overdrive, but it also depends on what kind of position you're in as well. Like certain drivers, if they're leading the race, are able to manage much more better than if they're trying to chase down a driver, for example. They say that ability to kind of catch and pass, they'll take too much out of the tires doing it. They can't manage it. They see a car in front and they want to catch as quick as possible, and they take too much out of the tires, rather than playing that long game saying, you've got 18 laps to catch him, this is your lap time, drive to it. And some drivers can do that spot on, and some drivers will just not, for example. I mean, the worst ones we had in terms of my ability to as personal experiences wasn't so much during a race, but when we were trying to get kind of tire information on a Friday, we'd say to one driver, right, we want you to manage the tires and see how the tire degradation is with it, and one driver who just want you to drive flat out, but not flat out, but as in this is an unmanaged race, so you still obviously take some kind of, you're not driving like a qualifying lap full on the edge, but you're driving without any management. And you'd have the driver who's managing who would potentially drive 5 seconds off the pace, and you're like, that's just way too slow. You're not managing, you're just driving slow. And then you have the driver driving too fast who's just takes it all out after 2 laps.
Mike, can you explain the difference slightly there between between someone who's managing and someone who's just going slow?
So like the managing is such a fine art. Is you can manage a lap time and be 3/10 slower than an optimum lap time, and that's managing. But then you'll get some drivers who will literally just like lift off in every corner, and we're going through every corner like 20 kph slower, or just delaying, putting the throttle down on exits or something, and just totally over managing, just taking it to an extreme, really, in that sense. You're basically just driving slow. So you are managing the tire. It's fully correct. You're just not driving properly.
I think I just want to get into sort of the details there of like, what would you do to manage the tire? Is it a case of, right, okay, make sure that you're applying the throttle gently so you're not getting any slip? Is it that kind
exactly.
of thing?
So like you, and it's generally like one of the simulations most teams will do going into weekend. You look at the track layout and you look at like the tire energies going through each corner, and you'll say, right, this corner is a high tire energy. However, we can do a lift here which saves X amount of energy, which only costs us minimal lap time because it's a high speed corner, and you're spending very little time through that corner anyway. So if you're just spending a 10 for 2 times longer in that corner, you save a huge amount of energy, which means you don't really have to do anything anywhere else. And even doing a little bit like slight lift and coast into corners as well, like at the end of long straights, you're doing 20 meters lift and coast, for example, will save massive amount of tire energy in that way, because you're just entering that corner that little bit. You're not aggressively sliding the tires trying to get the car turned in. You're taking that a little bit easier. And then, like you said, on corner exits, there'll be certain corners like low speed corners where you're going from low speed on full throttle, so you're just trying to manage that throttle application in terms of getting out, which again reduces the slip on the rear tires. And it all depends as well, is what's your limiting tire, what's your tire going to give up first as well. So it's your circuit specifics in that sense.
Okay, so congratulations. You have now provoked a multi-part question from me. Question part A is going to be, when you look at managing tires, how are you determining if the driver is doing what you need them to do in terms of the tires are going to last for the amount of laps we want them to because you're doing this, that, or the other? And then the second part of that question is going to be, when you show up on a Friday and you need that tire data, is it more important? Because I see the different teams doing different runs. Would you rather have both drivers on the same tire and one doing the all out and the other doing the manage? Or is it more important to have information on the two potential race tires, one from each driver?
So that's a really good question for both parts. So the first part in terms of it is like you'll have basically all the kind of vehicle dynamics groups of the teams will create tire metrics, so tire sliding metrics. So you're looking at the kind of the sliding of the car, the yaw of the car. So that's all coming off telemetry. You're looking at the tire temperatures. So you've got the surface temperature of each tire. You've got numerous lasers, numerous kind of wheel speed slips, or all those slip angle calculations. So they'll all go in, probably about 100 data points going into these, and then they're producing these kind of calculations, which are actually producing an energy per tire. So these tires are like literally plotted live throughout a lap of how much energy is going through each tire. And then you can see, which one's the highest tire, where it's kind of like providing the highest amount of loading. And then if you're starting to get the managing going in for certain corners, you can see what benefit that has on it. So you can see if kind of it's a cumulative effect, or if it's just a spike in tire energy, which actually hasn't damaged the tire, for example. Like occasionally there's no avoiding it. You're going to put a high tire energy load through at some points, but like if it's momentary, it's not going to damage the tire. It's those long corners. So like turn 3 at Barcelona, where you're fully leaning on the kind of front left throughout it. That's where the kind of it builds up and damages the tire. So they're getting all these kind of telemetry live there, and you can see when you're asking the drivers to do that managing, you can see how much effect it's having on it and how well the driver's doing at that kind of managing as well. So you're seeing, again, going back to, is he just driving slow and not actually driving properly, or is he actually managing it correctly? And then the second part of the question, it really depends on what kind of your strategy choices are. So occasionally it's, we're really unclear on this tire. It's the track's been resurfaced, so we're not sure what the tire's going to do. Is it going to grain? Is it not going to grain? We need to kind of get a bit of information of, does it need managing in that first bit? And there sometimes at that aspect, you'll have that bit of an unknown on one tire, which you're hoping is going to be the main race tire. So you then might concentrate both drivers on that same tire, but doing a different approach, knowing, for example, say you've got the hard, medium, and soft on it, and the soft's not going to last. The soft's basically not a race tire, so it's the medium and hard. You want to know really what the medium's going to do. You that's your main one. You're semi-confident that the hard's going to be an okay tire, but you just want to see where that medium stands in relation, and if a bit of management makes it okay, or if it's a case of, okay, we need to hold two hards over into the race, or we need to convert to a two-stop in that respect. So it is very depending on what the circumstances going into a weekend, of whether you'll split the drivers in terms of tires and how confident you are on your kind of tire read going into the weekend. So a lot of that's based off historic data. So you look at what the tire performance was the year before, how it's then related with the same tires from the previous season, from the current season, and then you're kind of trying to map it out to see, right, this race, every race has seemed to match last year's race in terms of strategy, so we're expecting this race to also go down that one. However, you have those instances, say a race has moved in the calendar year, so it's different temperature, or the track has been totally resurfaced, which can really play a big difference to how the tire behaves.
I hear the echo of some very long nights bitterly represented in that last comment about resurfacing.
Resurfacing, it can go one of two ways, and it seems to be I remember a good result we had with HAAS in 2018 at Barcelona, which had been resurfaced, which basically changed Barcelona from a 3-stop to a 1-stop, and it was fantastic because you just knew you just could run all day. But then there's other tracks where you resurface and you've just got no grip whatsoever, and tires just grain. No matter what tire you put on, it grains. So then you get to the hard tire, it doesn't grain, but it just doesn't work, and then that's where the fun comes into it at that point.
I think earlier in the season you were saying to us, the team seemed to be really overestimating the amount of wear, and actually these tires could do more one-stops or longer runs. What do you think was causing that kind of almost like mass mistake that seemed to be creeping into the strategy this year?
I think people just being overly cautious. I mean, it was one of those ones where I think that you kind of get spooked sometimes if something happens in one race. For example, I think earlier on in the season it was, I can't remember if it's Imola or China, one of the two, one of those ones. And someone converted to a 2-stop, and then suddenly they were close to a race win, or they even won the race or something. And suddenly everyone kind of spooks because one car's fallen off, and then that kind of, it's natural that it then goes into the next race going, no, it's not, the tires more not as durable as they were, that's it. And everyone shifts their thought process on it, and they overact a little bit away. And usually you overact one way, then you overact the other way, and then you end up back back of where you were to begin with. And it's a natural thing sometimes. You kind of get to that point where you panic a little bit, and you think you're reading things which you're not reading. And
if the whole grid is moving towards, let's do like more 2-stops, get everything out of the tire, be more aggressive, and you go the other way and it doesn't work, or your tires fall off a cliff, the consequences for that are higher than if you go with the pack and it doesn't go well.
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely one thing in the strategy. If you end up doing something that the rest of the grid isn't doing it, the first thought process is,
I'm going to look
what have I done wrong here? Yeah, exactly. That is the case, because you've got a lot of clever people on that grid up and down it. And if you're doing something slightly different, or very different to everyone else, the initial thought is usually the other 9 teams, they aren't going to be wrong. What have I got wrong here?
The Hamilton effect that we've seen in the last couple of seasons, where they'll pull the tires off and you'll get Hamilton going, I told you, look, the rest of the grid is all on mediums. And what was it? Was it in Silverstone when Norris ended up going on the wrong tyre. And yeah, Hamilton came in and went on to what turned out to be the correct tyre. I thought, have they got this wrong? But because Red Bull was so reliable, Max came in and also got the same tyre as Hamilton. I went, phew. Okay, okay, good. That probably means it's the correct tyre. Matt, why don't we dip into our mailbag again?
I've just got to, sorry, Matt. I've just got to. I didn't answer the Dane's final part of this patriotic question about Kevin.
Oh, well done, Mike. Yes, well done.
Yeah, so I just want to pick up. Like, Kevin was great to work with. And it actually answers one of the other questions. Is he's actually the only F1 driver I've got in my phone, and I do talk to him quite often. So there you
go. So Mike, on that, I always said that my dream pub pairing out of the drivers would have been Kevin Magnussen and Nico Hulkenberg, and it was kind of like, because they were older drivers for one as well. But you just get this impression that they're kind of no nonsense guys. They're not going to give you any kind of BS.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously never worked with Nico. I'd left before he joined, but Kevin's definitely that sense. He was a sound guy. He was like, if you got something wrong, we'd tell you it, but it was never anything hard feelings behind it. It was like you could always have a good chat with him. You could always kind of chat through different options with him. He was very open for that conversation. Yeah, if you made a mistake, he held your hands up. He went and made a mistake. He obviously is a racing driver, so he'd have a little bit of a sulk about it. By next weekend, he'd be fine. But yeah, it was really good to work with.
And then ruined his career by having 18 kids. A mistake that you seem to be sleepwalking into at the moment, Mike. You don't need to check on anything. There's not one about to pop, is there?
Well, I haven't heard any knocking on the door coming in saying we need to go anywhere. So
any minute now. So this is the second one, Mike. After that, you get a hobby or upgrade your Netflix account. Honestly, just park it there. Two's bad enough.
100% it's been parts. Don't worry.
I think one is the correct amount of kids, but boy, does my youngest get upset when I say that. Matt, I think our next question is going to be another Danish listener. They've overtaken this week.
That's because they now know they can get personal information about their favorite Danish driver, Kevin Magnussen, who plays into this question as well from EJ. He's curious about the fact that some of the teams have done that thing where they've ditched both of their drivers at the same time, and would like to know, by losing continuity, by not hanging on to one driver, is that a disadvantage, especially on development, because you have two new drivers? And then he would also like to know, is that part of the reason that HAAS has made this arrangement with Magnussen to continue working for them?
Oh, is that what he's doing?
In that capacity? Yeah, I think he's either driving the old car some, or he's going to do some sim work for them or something like that. But yeah, he's still got some official team duties, despite his new career in IMSA being awesome.
Yeah, I think the main thing about it's interesting about the teams who've done a total change. I mean, it's always a big one to do that, and HAAS obviously experienced that on 3 occasions now where they've changed all the drivers. Once, and it depends on what kind of your end goal is, and I know with Kevin, it's you're looking potentially long term with Ollie coming in. I don't know how much he's still a Ferrari driver or not. I can't remember if he's fully a HAAS driver or still part of the Ferrari program. I can't remember that one. I don't know if that's part of it. But with Kevin, it's always hard to kind of do that full change, especially when you're going for a new young driver and a change in the other driver as well. So if you bring a young driver in, it's sometimes understandable you're looking for the future, but it's usually interesting to keep someone side by side to then train them up or let them know how the team works, etc. I can't expect, like with Kevin's current relationship with HAAS in terms of his work, I don't expect him to be that person who's coming in and helping out with the young driver aspect of it. I don't think that's
not like a mentor.
I don't think he has any interest in doing that. He's like Matt said, he's very much a racer. That's why he's gone to IMSA. He's not interested in sitting in an F1 paddock and not doing anything. He said that numerous times in the press and personally. He's like, he wants to race, he wants to win. So I can't see him in being there on a weekend trying to help out the young driver at the track. That's just not what he wants to do. especially since it looks like his little brother started racing, so I'll probably be helping him out more than that. In terms of what he's going to do with HAAS, I think there's obviously there's mule car testing for the 2026 one, so maybe he's going to do a little bit of the driving for that, which might help out and trying to get the kind of that 2026 work done. I think that's probably where his biggest aspect is. He's going to be helpful with in that one. He knows obviously members of the team. He can still work quite closely with all the mechanics, the engineer, well, some of the engineers. Yeah, so that's probably that kind of continuity for 2026 will probably aid HAAS in that sense. In terms of his 2025 help, I don't think he's going to probably do too much in that sense.
Just to update anyone who didn't know this, because I've just been searching it as you've been talking, a third family member in the Magnussen family, this is according to therace.com, is starting their journey up the single-seater ladder. Kevin Magnussen's 15-year-old brother, Luca, will graduate from karting this year with a season in the UK-based single-seater series GB4 for Fortec Motorsport. All right, a little way off yet, but the Danes, they might have some hope. You know, they will get behind a driver, the Danes, and there's money to be had, I think, if you're a Danish driver entering F1.
So I want to follow up with the Magnussen thing. Like, my impression was that he's really more there to be a bit of a benchmark against how the car was last season versus this season, because I'm assuming he would have had simulator time so he can make a relative comparison that way. But also, I'm very curious because who I assume Ocon coming in is going to be sort of their lead driver, but he's coming to the Ferrari power unit for the first time. So I wonder if you'd experienced that with any other drivers coming into a team and, oh, I've never used this power unit before. How much does that affect how they drive the car to get the most out of the power unit?
I mean, it is a change. There's definitely a lot of they have to learn, but with the cars they are now, no matter, even if you change team, there's so many kind of controls and switches and understanding behind it. I think with the level of the drivers they are, it'll only take him a little bit of running to understand like what the drivability of the Ferrari engine is compared to the Renault engine or the Mercedes engine that he's driven before. He'll soon start to learn what the kind of differences are between them. And I think now they've got to a point so much that they're all very similar now in terms of the performance. That I think, well, potentially with Ocon anyway, he's obviously he's going from probably the least powered engine to, I mean, what you say, the Ferrari is probably the most powerful engine potentially at this point. Is someone say in certain conditions.
Because we're listening out for Lewis as well. When I know you're saying Ocon, but I'm just hearing Lewis, new engine, getting used to the Ferrari engine.
Yeah, I mean, and that's probably going to be the biggest change is in that, because Ocon's obviously gone through he's driven the Mercedes engine, he's driven a Renault engine, so he's done that change of engines, whereas Lewis has been a Mercedes engine his whole career. So when he went from McLaren to Mercedes, they were still both on Mercedes. So he's only ever worked with Mercedes power units. I think potentially what he'll find, and this is not trying to be stereotypical, and I don't want to offend any of our the Italian viewers, and I'm not, no intention, but as you'll have seen on a lot of the coverage, the we are checking is notorious for any Ferrari PU kind of issues or investigations.
We've got a few Ferrari strategy questions actually, Mike. That might be quite a good way of segueing into them. Okay, so look, I'll read a few of these here. Justin says, Ferrari always seem to have an entire alphabet worth of plans on race day. Is that normal? How many different team strategies do teams typically have? Go on, let's start with that one then, Mike. Do you have a smirk when you see that we are doing Plan Lima, Plan L?
Yes, yeah, I mean 100%. And like I don't know the ins and outs of what they're doing. It might be very slight changes, but I mean I'm a huge advocate of like you should have 2 plans.
Keep it simple, stupid. Yeah.
Basically, yeah. I mean, the drivers have got so much to remember. There's no point telling them more than 2. If you tell them more than 2, they're not remembering anyway. So like, if you're going down a whole list of plans, then my viewpoint on this, and this isn't to be critical of the Ferrari team. Like I said, I don't know exactly what it might be fully, but they're naming their plans based on their stop laps or something. So it might be literally like, right, plan A was stopping on lap 15, plan B was stopping on lap 17, plan C lap 19. So something like that along that, and in not terms of totally different strategies. But in my view is that if you're really unsure about your strategies, that you needing to have 26 different plans, you're struggling to begin the race on it. So like my viewpoint was always right, plan A, this is what the optimum strategy is. If all goes correct off the grid, if everything goes to plan, this is the one we should be doing. Plan B is right, we're a bit unsure on that tire, right, we're potentially converting to a 2-stop, so it's because we're seeing higher degradation, plan B. And plan C, right, we're going to just switch the tire order around. We're potentially fitting the hard tire as at the second stop instead of the medium tire. Very, very rarely I had a plan D, which was safety car, for example. There's a safety car on lap 5, and we're going to do a really long one stop, something like this. And that was basically kind of my plans, because yeah, as I mentioned, the drivers just don't take in that much information. If you speak to a driver for basically more than 30, 45 seconds, they've stopped listening. They're not listening anymore. They're on YouTube looking at something else. So it's you just need to keep it straightforward for them. They need to know roughly what lap they need to get to and roughly what tires they're putting on, and that's all. And that's generally why you'll hear on the radio why drivers come back with so many comments during the race, is because they haven't basically been listening before the race.
That's general good rule in just all communication, whether it's WhatsApp or email. People cannot answer more than one question at a time. So ask the most important question first, wait for a reply, then ask the next one. Otherwise, people just switch off. But Rachel says, I'm curious to hear how Mike thinks Lewis will go with a new voice in his ear and a new team known for making some interesting strategy calls at times. Lewis seems to be very instinctive, and he strikes me as needing a calm head to firmly sell him on strategy calls. What do we think Ferrari can actually provide Lewis with this? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of points where Lewis has been like audibly unhappy with the strategy call, and Bono's been very good at just kind of going, either we'll talk about it after the race, or here's why we did that. Do you think that will make a difference?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the relationship is with his race engineer at Ferrari. I think, to answer the first part of that one, in terms of going into Ferrari and with the new voices and stuff, they've obviously got Jock Clear, who Lewis has worked with before. So I think that's probably going to be a very, very important relationship for Lewis to settle in with the team and the engineering group. Is Jock's very good at that kind of aspect of bringing information to Lewis, taking information from Lewis, and getting the best out of all people. That's one of his real strong points, and I think that'll be part of the reason why Lewis will settle in okay. Regarding the strategy stuff, I mean, you obviously hear how much Charles comes back and questions the strategies. So I fully expect that Lewis will probably be probably similar in that one. I think he'll quite happily raise it again and again and again, and yeah. I don't think Ferrari will change their approach though. So no. Not in a bad way, but they'll just say they'll basically say, well, we're looking at it. This is what we're doing.
Okay, but when Hamilton was unhappy on the radio, you generally get Peter Bonington. He would win the exchange in a way, so he's almost parenting a little bit. And yes, whether or not Lewis Hamilton is getting something off his brain, you always felt like Bono won the exchange. The pit wall won the exchange. His new race engineer is going to be Riccardo Adami, who was Carlos Sainz's engineer. In those exchanges, Sainz was always the grown-up. It always felt like Sainz was the one who came out of that going, guys, listen, this is the way it is. And I don't know, that feels like a recipe for disaster with Hamilton.
I mean, I think it's going to be one of the interesting things to watch for the first part of the season. It's I mean, obviously, if you had Lewis 10 years ago, it would have been very different to Lewis now. It depends on kind of his mentality going into it. It's going to be depends on how competitive the car is. That's because that often changes Lewis's reactions to things as well, especially if he's got a chance of winning a race, and then there's something that happens which he doesn't like. Is he competing with his teammate? That these are all going to have like parts of it, and it'll be really interesting to see how Ferrari manage it. And yeah, I mean, like I said, Ferrari have had experience with it. Charles definitely questions and almost stamps his authority over them as well. So it'll. I'm interested. I can't really answer on what's going to happen, but I am interested to see how it does go.
He'd better not do any inventing. That's all I'm going to say to Ricky. No inventing. Matt.
Oh gosh, I have so many to choose from. I kind of want to ask about the difficulties of drivers feeling something in the car and saying like the tires are gone or the tires will last longer than you think versus what you see on telemetry and what your strategy that you were already committed to says. But it also kind of brings up this larger, because I know that Vasseur has talked about a lot of teams are making some big changes in their strategy teams and in their personnel. So John M has asked, what should we be looking out for to see if those changes are working out the way the teams hope they will?
I mean, I think it very much connects to the previous question. Well, the first things to see if things are working or things aren't working is how much drivers are coming back and questioning what's happening to the pit wall. Like, you know how good your strategy team is when there's very little feedback coming from the drivers that they ask to do something and it's just okay, and it all happens. If you start having that kind of two-way conversation from the driver to the pit wall, then that's often where you know things aren't potentially that happy, or things that haven't maybe quite worked out as what's going on in that respect. Yeah, it's that's probably going to be the clearest way to see if the changes have made. I think a lot of it will potentially be down to just that kind of relationship with it. So teams have made that change to in their strategic team. Drivers have got to learn it, but drivers are used to working with different people, so that they'll build up that relationship and start chatting amongst themselves, trying to work out what works best for the driver, what doesn't work best for the driver. Just making sure that kind of communication is all key before the race, and that's kind of where I always look to work, was that kind of pre-race meeting or pre-race meeting. So just sitting down and just making sure that they all understood what the plans were, understood what was required of them, making sure if they had any questions to come to me, but also making sure you chat with drivers throughout the weekend as well. So I chat with the drivers as soon as they got there on a Thursday, do a track walk with them, if not just catch up with them where I can, speak to them on Friday about how they felt in the car, any kind of little bits of feedback from there, just on what they felt the kind of tires were doing in free practice. If there's a new circuit or there's kind of new regulations, if they were following a car behind, what's the kind of odds on overtaking, just getting any little bit of feedback, because then once you've talked to them over a weekend, once they kind of start saying things on the radio, where it stands. So you've got that understanding of what their feel is for the car already, and their feel for the tires and what you see. So you can start kind of calibrating your viewpoint with what they're saying on the radio when it actually comes to the important bit.
And that is why you were exceedingly good at your job, I would guess. Just a quick follow-up on John's question, which is, with all these changes at the teams, how long should, say I'm a fan of a team that has a new strategy person, and how long should I give them to like really bet in before I decide they're terrible and should be immediately fired?
Yeah, is there like a telltale sign where something's happening, you go, oh no, that strat department is washed?
I mean, it's always interesting to keep a look on the pit walls and see who the personnel is up there, and see how they're rotating it. But I mean, strategy is not just a one person thing. It's not just a strategy team. It's like the decisions are made throughout. The strategy team will present, will fight their arguments. They'll to put the pros and cons, but ultimately it's a discussion that's going throughout senior leadership, the team principal potentially, and some teams, the drivers, the race engineers. So it all works. It's not just a strategy issue. If things are going wrong, it's not just a strategy issue. It means either the trust has been lost in the strategy team by the senior leadership, and at that point, if they hired the wrong people. But if that's the case, then is the fault of the strategy team, or is it fault of the senior team for putting that group in place to start with? It's part of a bigger picture. But I mean, you can still call for the heads. I mean, like you can put the best strategy out. Well, like if you go on social media, you'll soon find someone who doesn't like it. So it's
yeah, I'd pay attention to that social media. But you're talking about if it was a movie version, it would be Mike and Kev, in the bar the night before, going, "How are we going to get past these? How are we going to get past these Alpines tomorrow?
Go
Mike?
faster in the turns. Go faster in the turns."
Well, they've got the advantage in the straights. What we're going to do is turn the corners. Come on, F1 movie, please be good. Please be good. However, in reality, for example, we went and visited the facility Airspeed with 2311 at Charlotte, and they had almost like a cinema room where you had banks of engineers and strategists away from the race, workshopping potential strategies and then phoning into the pit wall. I'd imagine somewhere like Mercedes is like that. In fact, I'd imagine you've done a role like that.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's my very first role was back at Mercedes. I mean, not quite the cinema room when I first started, though it is much more like that now. It was more of a cupboard when we first started doing the race support and throwing in the strategies in. But yeah, it sometimes having those people away from the track and away from it actually allows that kind of bit of clear heads just to take a look over everything. And like I said, it's a team, it's a strategy group. Most teams, and most teams have got a strategy group of 4 or 5 people, so you'll all have your different roles, but it means you can concentrate on specific areas. And then again, like you'll know, it's all about communication. It's all about kind of understanding going into race what you're going to look at, how we're going to communicate it, how we're going to communicate it before the race, and just having everything like kind of clear. And then with the guy who's at the track, it's his job and his responsibility to make sure that everyone gets the buy-in for it, basically, and also what the other things you might be looking at, because you never know exactly what's going to happen. If you knew exactly what's going to happen in the race, then basically the field would start in the same or finish in the same position it started. So it's just a way of reacting to that. But again, making sure you know what you're reacting to, looking at them, the highest probabilities of what kind of permutations you're looking for, and how you communicate that. And if something does significantly change, how do you get the best out of it and respond quickly?
And I suppose it's if an idea comes from the team back at the factory, you go, right, how much credit do I give them? Is it a risky one? You go, right, Derek in the cinema room says maybe we should give this a go. So you could do that. But I do imagine it's a little bit like that Apollo movie where they're away from the spaceship, recreating, here, you've got a tube, you've got this toilet roll, you've got these nuts and bolts, create a escape plan. So yeah, I mean, they should give that away, shouldn't they, as prizes, tours of the strategy cinema back at the factory.
But I mean, you say this joke, but actually, one of the best strategy calls I made was from the back in the factory at HAAS, was because I'd broken my wrist, and so got shipped back to have an operation, and then I was in it. So it was the Budapest one where we pitted on the formation lap. But because I was sat in the race support room, I was in a nice quiet room. I had lots of TV screens, and I was suddenly seeing that this track's dry. Why are we on these tires? So I just literally just shouted in, just like, we shouldn't be on this, and it went for it. And all right, we got a penalty for it, but we still got points. Which
was the penalty for giving an instruction on the formation lap?
It was just. I have thoughts about that, and they're mostly violently not safe for work.
Could there have been like some coded way to get them to come in without specifically? No, I don't suppose.
I mean, there could have been if we'd thought about this process before it actually happened. But as soon as it was literally like they started on the formation, like went around turn 1 at Budapest and it's suddenly like that shot of when it's like between turn 1 and turn 2, you're like, oh, this is dry. And that was basically when the decision was made. There wasn't really any talk about it beforehand. So yeah, the only way to say it was,
Mike, so you flipped between having a private account on social media. Are you public at the moment? Can people go and follow you?
I'm public on the Blue Sky.
Go and follow Mike then. We'll link to
same
Mike's.
one. Mike Caulfield F1. Yeah, on Blue Sky. My Twitter is still there, but just so no one tries to impersonate me.
Fair
like
enough.
they would do.
And
but I
one
don't
thing
use
I've
it.
got to get better at doing, which we did do a couple of times last season, was on a Friday, from the Friday practice, trying to get your input, even if we can just grab you for a few minutes, even on a WhatsApp voice note for the TikTok or something, and let's see if we can get some insights from you about how to pick apart race pace on a Friday. Excellent.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, that sounds really good.
Go and follow Mike. Don't worry about following me and Matt for now, because we'll be back on Sunday. So there's no real need to follow us now. Just wait until we do our news roundup on Sunday. But until we see you next, work hard, be kind, and have fun. This was Missed Apex Podcast. Sorry, had to leave slightly earlier, Mike, as the kids are home. It's nothing but trouble. Don't say I didn't try to warn you, because I did.
I already know. It's fine.